And welcome to CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Coming up, the Biden administration continues its push for employers to require vaccines or routine tests. But now church leaders are speaking out against the mandate. We've got the story. Plus, making sure Afghan refugees relocating to America aren't left alone and without help.
In good conscience, we can't walk away from those people. That's not American.
How churches across the country are among the first to welcome them and give them assistance. Also, a sneak peek at the Christmas movie from The Chosen with the creator of the series himself.
I love the story so much. It's my favorite time of year. I know that's a cliche, but it's true.
We'll hear about the film that celebrates the birth of Jesus. And the love of a teacher and her students spanning decades shines brightly during her greatest time of need. All those stories and more are next.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour with a nationwide rise in COVID cases. 21 states report at least a 10% rise. That's fuel for the Biden administration's push for employers to require vaccines or regular testing. But now church leaders are adding their voices to the conversation and joining governors and CEOs who oppose the president's move. Here's Brody Carter with more.
Even after a U.S. appeals court temporarily blocked the vaccine mandate, the Biden administration is pushing businesses to proceed. More than half of the states, several businesses, and vocal church leaders are saying no.
The issue here is a mandate that threatens to turn a religious institution into an arm, a coercive arm of the state.
Dr. Albert Mohler, president of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, is fully vaccinated, and he encourages his students to get the shot. Mohler adds, however, the federal mandate tramples religious freedoms, which is why he's suing the Biden administration.
There is not an exemption for religious employers. That's why we have filed this suit. We're looking at issues in which the nation is divided, and we shouldn't be surprised that people of Christian conviction are divided. There's our basic unity in Christ, and so we're leaning into that, but this is out of respect for that difference of conviction. And that's the very reason we've done this.
Dr. Mohler joins a growing nationwide list suing the government. Biden wants all federal appellate cases consolidated by next week. Attorneys at Alliance Defending Freedom say it's possible the U.S. Supreme Court could step in.
We think this is a gross violation of the ministerial exemption of church autonomy, not to mention religious freedom under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act and the Free Exercise Clause.
Even after the Fifth Circuit Court temporarily halted the mandate, the White House basically advised employers to ignore it. While the courts quietly deal with legal battles, the louder political impact of vaccine mandates and masks remains. Regardless where Christians stand on the issues, Dr. Mohler says it's vital to be an example.
This is our responsibility 24/7. And Christians, some sooner, some later, are being awakened to the issues we now face. In an increasingly secularizing society, we're going to have to be ever more vocal, ever more articulate, respectfully engaged by Christian conviction. That's our calling.
New lawsuits against the mandate are coming in daily, if not hourly. The most recent filed on behalf of U.S. Navy SEALs applying for religious exemptions that the Pentagon is refusing to grant. I'm Brody Carter, CBN News.
The White House says nearly 1 million children ages 5 to 11 are expected to receive their first COVID shot by the end of the day. Those numbers represent 3% of 28 million children who are now eligible. PFIZER is asking the FDA to allow booster shots for everyone 18 and older. The request comes after a booster study in 10,000 people. Right now, the shot is available to older adults and those whose health make them more vulnerable to the virus. The Consumer Price Index rose higher than expected, up 6.2% over last October, the highest in more than 30 years. And then there's the Producer Price Index. It measures wholesale prices, and it jumped 8.6% from last October, the biggest leap in 11 years. Soaring gas prices and auto prices drove the surge. Analysts say inflation will drive up energy prices this winter, but the Biden administration announced yesterday it will not shut down a pipeline that sends crude oil from Canada to Michigan. Prices are also surging in the pantry, making it even harder for America's food banks. Grocery prices climbed 10% in 2020. That's leaving struggling families with fewer options for help. Households sidelined by the pandemic were already struggling to pay for food. Now they're faced with even more hurdles, including rising consumer prices, supply chain issues, and labor shortages. Feeding America says 2020 was a record-breaking year, serving 60 million people at charitable food systems throughout the country. Higher price tags and limited availability mean some families may get smaller servings and substitutions for household staples. With the holidays now approaching, food banks are anticipating a flood of families. Some food banks are trading in the turkey for 5-pound chickens.
Our food banks are seeing prices that are 2 to 3 times what they were just 9 months ago.
Our clients, they're sharing with us, that the rising food cost is something that is a huge stressor right now for them. It's something that they just can't afford.
I need food for my family. You know why? Because the stores is very expensive, the food, and my money is not enough.
The Food at Home Index rose 5.4% over the past 12 months. All 6 major grocery store food group indexes rose with it. Food pantries across the nation are in need of volunteers and donations ahead of this holiday season. Here now are some other stories we're following for you inside the CBN newsroom. A federal judge rejects President Donald Trump's request to keep the White House from releasing documents to the House committee investigating that January 6th attack on the Capitol. The judge says Congress has a strong public interest in obtaining records that could shed light on the violent insurrection. The National Archives now plans to turn over the former president's records by Friday. YouVersion celebrates 500 million app installs. This year, 64 billion people are reading or listening to the Bible app. It has expanded with 2,600 versions of the Bible in nearly 2,000 languages. The faith-based scouting group Trail Life USA is teaming up with Dr. Tony Evans and Promise Keepers for a 14-day challenge for dads. The Fatherhood Summit kicks off this evening with a 1-hour live event streamed on Facebook and YouTube. It will include 14 days of encouragement and practical application. The goal is to help men be strong, influential fathers to their own children and to those without fathers. The chairman of Promise Keepers tells CBN News fathers are looking for answers.
Well, we found that so many dads don't really know how to be dads, and they've asked us for help because, the tradition of Christianity in America has been fathers teaching their sons how to be fathers. But, in these last couple of generations, we've seen a real interruption in that. And so we have so many dads like, how do I communicate with my kids, especially with massively changing culture so fast we can barely keep up with it? What do I say if my child says this or that? And so we take on some really tough issues to really help dads know what to do, what to say, and how to behave.
And you can view the summit across our CBN News platforms, including YouTube, and by downloading the CBN News app and the CBN Family app. Coming up, fleeing a country in crisis, Afghan refugees find help in America and from the faith community all across our land. We've got the story for you and much more when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch on this Wednesday. Afghan refugees are resettling in the United States, and churches across the country are leading the way to become among the first to welcome and help them. CBN Senior National Affairs Correspondent Heather Sells reports from Fort Worth, Texas, on these faith communities that are welcoming the stranger.
I'm not a very good athlete.
Refugees have been learning to speak English at Southcliff Baptist for 20 years. Early on, Bosnians learned a new language. Many of today's students come from a different war-torn land. Texas is preparing to receive more than 4,000 refugees from Afghanistan, and churches here have become part of the front lines in welcoming them.
Southcliff has always been there for the refugees.
Helmond Wardock and his family arrived 6 years ago. They're thriving in large part due to Southcliff. In addition to English classes, the church provides community and a safety net for those struggling to survive. After a 6-month honeymoon, their government housing and food allowance runs out.
What happens after is like the refugees mostly they are left by their own. So that's where the churches such as Southcliff, they come into action.
Across North Texas, hundreds of church volunteers have signed up and trained to help resettle those who fled Afghanistan. Northwood Church is sponsoring 3 families.
We're actually going to acquire 3 apartments and put those families up for 12 months.
April Hale volunteered to organize clothing needs after following Afghanistan on the news.
I found myself at home watching everything unfold, feeling helpless, and just wishing that I could find something to do to help them. When I found out that we were going to be able to help some families through our church, there it is. You know, that's my answer.
Her attitude may mark a shift in evangelical thinking towards refugees. During the Trump administration, the U.S. slashed the numbers allowed in to 15,000. That forced some faith-based agencies like World Relief to lay off staff and close offices. A 2018 Pew poll showing declining support for refugees among white evangelicals led many to wonder if the church was losing its vision for ministry. Now, the Biden administration plans to admit more refugees, and resettlement agencies are ramping back up. They're rehiring, recruiting volunteers, and stocking supplies. Next year, World Relief in North Texas will help resettle 4 times the number it did last year.
We are quickly expanding our offices, our staff.
Northwood pastor and World Relief partner Bob Roberts says he's seen an overwhelming response.
I think there's a shift that's taking place. We're coming back to who we are.
What's helped, a host of Christians with ties to ministries in Afghanistan, plus veterans.
The right response is we've been in the war. We have marginalized people to use them in the war in good conscience. We can't walk away from those people. That's not American.
Southcliff pastor Stu Kokenauer says refugees have changed his church.
We have persecuted Christians in this church that are just so grateful to be in a nation where they can worship Jesus without fear of the army busting in.
And churches are changing lives. Zahir, a former U.S. interpreter, fled Afghanistan in August with his wife and son.
Agency, they're providing, everything. Like they provide, like in the first, from the first day till now.
A church member co-signed for his apartment, and he's now looking for a job, any job. Wardock, meanwhile, is trying to help his 20 family members who worked with the U.S. government but can't get out of the country.
So we are just trying to talk to them, speak to them every day, just to calm them down.
As these refugees rebuild their lives here and try to help loved ones back home, they face plenty of risk and unknowns. One certainty, however, is the growing number of churches committed to helping them navigate a new culture while pointing them to the love of Christ. Reporting in North Texas, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Still ahead, we're hearing firsthand from the creator of The Chosen about the highly anticipated Christmas film coming to the big screen. We'll have the story for you right after this. Ticket sales are already setting records for a special Christmas film from the series The Chosen. I had the chance to sit down with the creator, Dallas Jenkins, to talk about the movie that's all about celebrating the birth of Christ.
Do you know where Luke is? I didn't tell him everything.
I feel like The Chosen began with Christmas. so are you obligated to honor Christmas every year?
I think that is a part of it. A few people have asked me, why are you doing a Christmas special? And I said, because that's what birthed The Chosen.
Joseph,
We can't keep looking. He's coming.
And I love the story so much. It's my favorite time of year. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. And when we've got these artists and musicians who love the show and want to celebrate Jesus as well, and I think our fans, after they watch a season, they want to celebrate, they want to worship, they love and know Jesus more, so now what? And Christmas seems like this perfect opportunity for them to not only celebrate the story, but to bring friends.
Are you seeing this?
It's time.
This Christmas finale special that's happening, tell us about it. What's new about it? What's going to happen?
Yeah, well, we're bringing back some of the artists from last year. We've got some new artists. The music is extraordinary. I can't wait for it myself. I'm going to be worshiping my face off when it comes out. But the thing that really is exciting is we're doing a brand new episode of The Chosen.
Remember what your messenger said. The first thing.
The opportunity to tell the Christmas story again from a different perspective, from Mary and Joseph's perspective. People are going to see the reality of the birth of Christ with the manure, with the smells, with this teenage girl who was scared to death, and her husband who was also scared to death, but who were trying to honor what God asked of them. And I think that's a part of the story that we haven't always heard before, and so that's what I think is going to be really exciting about the special.
Don't be afraid. That Jesus Christ is...
People must know.
What have these last few years been like?
Honestly, I haven't even had a chance to stop and think about it, really. I know that at each stage of The Chosen, I have tried desperately to remain surrendered. So watching the show grow, one of the cool things about it is it'd be like if the boy who provided the loaves and fish at the feeding of the 5,000 went home to his parents and said, "I fed 5,000 people today, Mom." That would be ludicrous. He'd be like, "I provided 5 loaves and 2 fish, and oh my gosh, Jesus did something crazy and multiplied them."
You are going to do 7 seasons, is that?
7 seasons. We decided that last year. We know exactly how we're going to end it, and we've worked our way backwards. So 7 seasons seems like a nice number.
Do you have a favorite episode to date?
I do. Yeah, that's a good question. I think episode 4 of season 1 still remains, I think, the episode that means the most to me. And I think not only is it one of my favorites because of how the scene turned out. I remember the music, when I first heard the music from the composer, it was so different than what I expected. But also the filming of that scene just took so many miracles. So that was the climax of the first 4 episodes, which was how The Chosen was originally released. So there's always going to be a special place in my heart for episode 4 of season 1.
People love this. I mean, from the artists who are here today to anyone I meet and encounter who thinks I haven't seen The Chosen yet. What does that do to you? Why do you think they're gravitating toward it so?
I think what people are responding to the most with the show is what I'm responding to the most as I explore Jesus to make the show, which is his humanity. I believe Jesus was God and man. I don't ever want to detract from the fact that he did miracles and that he was the Son of God and that he is the Messiah. But when you focus on the fact that Jesus joked with his friends, that he danced at a wedding, that he dressed his wound, that he spoke with children, that he loved his mom, that his first miracle at the wedding was a favor for his friends because his mom asked him to. When you realize that the creator of the universe dwelt among us, which is Emmanuel, God with us, which is one of the reasons why I love Christmas so much. Emmanuel, God with us. I think that notion that God was with us as a man is what people seem to be responding to the most.
And we will have more from the Chosen Christmas film in the weeks ahead. Tonight on Studio 5, Tony Hale, Clifford the Big Red Dog, Bubba Watson, and Ahmad Rashad are all joining us for exclusive sit-down interviews. You can catch Studio 5 tonight at 8:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel or on demand on the CBN News app. Coming up, a teacher's love for her students spanning decades and how they return the love as she battles with cancer. We're going to have her story for you when we come back. Stay with us. An elementary school teacher in Wisconsin who is battling stage 4 cancer recently received a heartwarming visit from some of her students. Carol Mack has taught first and second grade at Christ Lutheran School in Big Bend for some 45 years. She continued to teach while battling cancer until her condition advanced, causing her to enter hospice care. According to a Facebook post, in Milwaukee, 26 students stood outside the hospital entrance on Wednesday to sing worship songs to their beloved teacher. Fellow teachers and friends of the teacher arranged for her current and former students, including some of their parents, who she also taught, to gather for the special occasion before her hospice care begins. Mack says she was overwhelmed at this very special gift. She says that she hopes people will see how much she and her students love each other and their school community came together. Louisa Compols, a nurse on Mack's care team, says when she saw Mack and the children singing, it was the most rewarding thing. She says the care team was very blessed to be a part of it. Nicole Bartnick, an occupational therapist at Aurora St. Luke, says Mack didn't have children of her own, but has more children than she could ever count, and says it's a true blessing to see so much love coming back to someone so selfless and deserving. Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is exceed. Know this: God's will and his plan exceed even your wildest dreams and imagination. So dream big and watch him dream bigger. Imagine wild and see him see even wilder. With that word, make today a wonderful Wednesday, and be sure to have yourself a wonderful rest of the week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. We'd love to hear from you. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.